agricultural products. For more than 130 years, the University of Adelaide has contributed to the success of our state's food, wine and agricultural sectors. This expertise is now more important than ever as we're in the midst of the biggest change in food production and processing since the Industrial Revolution. Hundreds of our top researchers are applying the latest technologies and developments to improve food production, processing and supply chains. We're using genomics, robotics, epigenetics and glycomics to improve plant and animal production, and machine learning and lasers to improve harvesting and food processing. We're also conducting projects to secure supply chains by exploring new markets. At the University of Adelaide, we are well placed to lead the next wave of innovation required by the sector.
Our consumers and markets are demanding wines of lower alcohol content, quite a challenge in our climate. We're investigating several strategies like the effects of staged harvest regimes, water addition and novel fermentation yeast to test their impact on wine quality and effectiveness in tailoring wine alcohol content.
The native food industry in Australia has been developing over the last 40 years. Our research team is studying bush foods which have grown wild in Australia for thousands of years to see if they're commercially viable and could eventually end up at our local supermarkets.
We're using next-generation light-based sensors and fibre optics to understand more about milk through measuring protein, fat and other factors in real time. Excitingly, our technology will allow farmers to optimise the health of their herd and increase milk quality over time.
Our research team has recently established Adelaide Glycomics, one of the most comprehensive carbohydrate analytical centers in the world. Our research will help recycle and convert carbohydrates from waste or low-grade crops, for instance downgraded potatoes, into products with a higher value, like functional foods with improved health benefits.
The research we do in the Centre for Global Food and Resources covers economic and social issues right across the food system. For example, we're working to better understand the needs of small farmers in Vanuatu who are producing cocoa in order to improve the taste and thus the value of the chocolate. And we're working with industry and policymakers in Vietnam to improve vegetable farmer welfare and reduce poverty.
Across all that we do, we're working closely with key food industry and government groups to bridge the gap between new innovation developed by our experts and the take-up of new practices by food producers. We're also training the next generation of leaders in food, wine and agriculture to tackle the biggest challenges of our time through our broad range of food-related degrees and courses. Food will taste better, become more accessible, be better for us and more cost-effective because of our world-class food research and education.
I come from a long line of farmers on the York Peninsula, and we were the first generation to come to the city and to learn. I got an interest in science really early. I'm really lucky. My dad's a scientist. He works with rocks. He's a geologist. I remember being absolutely fascinated with his bookshelf, and there was one in particular that was called Matter. And I remember distinctly I used to love going through it and learning all the elements and all of the elemental symbols, even though I had no idea what it meant. I really liked to know things. I was the kind of kid that would ask, why is a plant green? And I'd need to know everything about it rather than just because. A molecular biologist is someone who works with plants and animals and anything living, but we work on the really small stuff. We work on cells and DNA and all of the molecules that you can't see. I think definitely one of the coolest things about being a molecular biologist is getting told about your genes and your DNA and everything like that. You know that it's there, but you might not necessarily know exactly what it does. We can be like, oh, I wonder what this gene does, and we go and find that out. That's our job. You're seeing things that people haven't seen before. You're making new discoveries that no one's ever done. My project involves looking at a genus of plants called Plantago. Plantago seeds make fibre when you put them into water. Your mum probably tells you that you need to eat a lot of fibre in your diet. That's very true. We need fibre from a lot of different places. The plant I work with is just one place. I'm really passionate about collecting rare seeds and seeds of plants that you don't normally see around the place. I love to just browse the internet and see what interesting plants I can find, and I bring them home and I plant them out and I see what happens. That's what science is about. I went from high school not really knowing 100% that this is what I wanted to do, and I still had those thoughts even at university. I sometimes worried about what I was going to do in my future because I wasn't good at everything. I was terrible at maths. I still am terrible at maths. I thought that because I was bad at maths I wasn't going to be able to go to university, but it's just not true. You find what you're good at and you follow that, and I was good at science and I went and did science. Sometimes it takes a while for you to work it out. I really bombed out in my first year of uni, and sometimes you think that that's the end of the world and that's where it finishes, but it doesn't. I picked myself up and I learnt how to do university properly, and I excelled, and this is where I am now.
Here at the University of Adelaide, we recognise that climate change is one of the most significant tests of our time, so we're taking action. Our campus sustainability plan is an important step in our response to the challenges and opportunities of a changing environment. As the founding partner of Carbon Neutral Adelaide, we're proud of our role in South Australia's low carbon transition. Our emissions directly impact those of the City of Adelaide, so we're making big changes to our campus infrastructure and calling on staff and students to help bring about real sustainable results. We're investing $14.5 million over 4 years to transform our buildings and grounds, inspire local leadership and mobilise our community of more than 25,000 staff and students. Saving energy is a top priority, and we're working hard to improve building efficiency and reduce energy demand. We're installing more than 10,000 energy efficient lights and 9,000 solar panels, including a solar farm at Roseworthy. Every campus building is different, so we're developing building user guides to help maximise comfort and efficiency. Once implemented, our plan will save more than 5,000 tonnes of CO2 per year, plus thousands of dollars in operational costs. We're aiming to reduce our mains water use by 40% and get our landfill diversion rate to 50% by 2020. This will mean half as much of our waste is actually going to waste, and significantly higher recycling rates across the entire university. We're rolling out the Kick Your Bin recycling program to all 3 campuses and delivering a waste education program for specialist items. The majority of our students use sustainable transport options, like cycling or public transport to get to university. We support our cyclists with secure bike storage, free bike maintenance, and opportunities to improve their cycling skills. Our plan outlines new funding and internships to improve the career readiness of our graduates, and we encourage all staff and students to get involved in sustainability-related events, programs and campaigns. We rely on local leaders to help lead positive behaviour change, and we support them with data, reports and funding for pilot projects. Our vision is of a university community that values and applies sustainable practices. We realise that in order to achieve this vision, each and every one of us will have to play our part by making regular and small changes to the way that we live, work and study. So, what will you do?
I will ride my bike to uni.
I will shut down.
I will stop buying bottled water. I will recycle correctly.
I will keep the sash down.
I will bring a reusable cup for my coffee.
I will print double-sided.
I'll get involved and encourage others to do the same.
Together, we can contribute to a healthier planet.
Together, we can make a difference.
Together, we are Ecoversity.
I've always loved science and I always loved being outside and I always loved insects and collecting bugs, but I don't think it was really until last couple of years at high school that I realised that you could do that as a job and as a career. From there I worked out that you could go to university and keep learning and keep studying science, so that's what I chose to do. I remember in primary school we went to a nature education centre and they had stick insects, and then my mum let me get one as a pet, and that kind of just fueled the interest. When you say wasp, everyone pictures a black and yellow, stripy, annoying, stinging thing that buzzes around your barbecue, but the wasps that I study are really tiny and black, but very beautiful under the microscope. So they've got a long needle-like projection, which we call the ovipositor, which they inject their eggs into caterpillars with, or there can be wasps, which are beautiful metallic blue colours or greens. They're totally different than what people think wasps are. And I think studying them and learning about them and helping to change people's perceptions of wasps and all the important things they do in the environment is pretty cool. I love doing science because I love the idea that you're discovering something that no one else in the world knows. You are the very first person to know this thing. For me, getting to describe and name a new wasp that no one has ever really recognised or seen this wasp before, and you're giving it a name that people might use for hundreds of years in the future. It's really exciting to feel like you're contributing something. I write a blog called Mustard the Dinosaur that talks about the day-to-day life of a PhD student in science. And that's one of, I think, the best bits is finding out new things, but then getting to tell people about them. I didn't know anything about wasps 2 years ago, but the more you study something, the more amazing and fascinating it becomes, the more you learn about it. There's bits at school that get you really excited, and then there's bits that are really boring. And I think where you then move on to university is where you get to choose just the stuff that you really want to study and learn stuff that's not straight out of a textbook. Follow your passion and follow what you enjoy. The best thing you can do is study something that you love and that gets you excited. And you know, not all of it is going to be fun all the time, but as long as you love a lot of it and love what you're doing, then even the hard bits will be worth it.
Located in the heart of one of the world's most livable cities and ranked in the top 1% of universities worldwide, the University of Adelaide offers the rare combination of elite academic performance and an enviable lifestyle. Home to 25,000 students and 3,600 staff from around the globe, our city campus has an unrivalled location, with green open parklands and botanical gardens on one side and a central business district on the other. Established in 1874, we are Australia's third oldest university. Whilst our history is rich with accomplishment, our focus today remains firmly on making history rather than resting on it. University of Adelaide graduates are highly regarded for their global perspective. Our student body is made up of 30% international students and
Well, that was amazing. The second the video stopped, everyone was really quiet. Hi, everyone. That was lovely, thank you. Welcome to the Adelaide STEM Careers Night. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have an absolutely jam-packed session. You'll be hearing from us, you'll be hearing from academics, you'll be hearing from current students, former students who've just recently graduated, and industry representatives as well. Before I go any further though, my name is Ari and I'm from the Faculty of Sciences.
And my name's Tom, I'm from the Faculty of Engineering, Computer and Mathematical Sciences, and we are going to be your MCs for tonight. Before we do get into tonight's proceedings, we would just like to acknowledge the land that we meet upon. We do meet on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the Adelaide Plains, on which the North Terrace, Roseworthy and Wake campuses are built.
And as a little bit of housekeeping, if you do need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the session, the bathrooms are accessible. They're actually outside the building, not actually, but you head up the stairs there and go around down the side of the building and you'll find a side door. There is signage outside as well as staff in the foyer if you need directions. In the very unlikely event of an emergency, there will be an alarm sound that will be very scary and panicky, but don't panic. Please follow our instructions at all times and we'll get you out safely, probably. I shouldn't have said that bit. One thing to note is that we do have quite a few speakers tonight, so if you do have any questions, we encourage you just to write them down. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the presentations where all of the speakers will be available to ask questions, so just keep them for then, but don't worry, we'll have time for it, and of course people will be available after the session as well.
So obviously we are here for the Adelaide STEM Careers Night, so we are going to be talking about careers in STEM. Something that excites me the most about careers in science, technology, engineering and maths is that they're so incredibly diverse. Essentially, when you boil it down, it's a career in curiosity, it's a career in creativity and a career in problem solving. At the core of any job that you end up working in a STEM field, you're going to be tackling problems, and the awesome thing is they can be on a small scale, national scale or even a global scale. So the United Nations has identified 15 global challenges that we face as a people, and some of these challenges revolve around clean water, sustainable energies, food shortages and making sure there's enough to go around, as well as population growth and making sure that we actually have enough resources to meet the demands of the growing population. And when you boil it down, essentially all of these problems and issues that we face and these challenges are going to be solved by people studying in a STEM field and working in the STEM space. So at the end of the day, we need more skilled people, and we need people who are going to be able to tackle some of these issues.
Something interesting about skills when we talk about STEM jobs is most people immediately gravitate towards being an expert programmer, knowing your discipline inside and out, being the best at physics and maths. And that is absolutely really useful skills to have, but it's not the only ones. On the screen we have the top skills valued by employers in STEM industries. So active learning is number one, and that's really important because STEM is a constantly evolving field. New initiatives are popping up all the time. A new piece of technology might come along and completely revolutionize an entire industry. So employers value people who are very flexible and adaptable and can learn on their feet. They have their background knowledge in their sciences and their maths, but they're also able to adapt as things go and develop. That's really key to being successful for a lifelong career. As Tom mentioned, STEM is all about solving problems. If there were no problems, there would not be STEM because people would just sit around and use what they already have. So, critical thinking, complex problem solving, these are all essential skills to solving problems. One that does generally surprise people is interpersonal skills. STEM jobs have a lot of knowledge tied up in them, and it's really important to be able to convey complex and large bits of information in very digestible and accessible ways. Quite often you're working with people who don't have the technical knowledge that you will, so it's important to be able to convey that information to them. All of these skills are what we call transferable skills, and at the University of Adelaide we are really focused on making sure that our students walk out of their degree with these skills. It's not enough for us to get you prepared for your first job, don't worry, we will, but we want to make sure that you're ready for the jobs that come after that, your second, your third, and your entire career. There's a lot of bragging points on the screen, but the one that I really want to draw your attention to is down the bottom here. We have a 5-star rating for student support in both engineering and sciences. If you take nothing else away from today, just remember that at the university we really pride ourselves on taking care of our students, making sure that you have access to the best support available, so that way when you graduate you are in the best possible position to go out into the workforce and get a really, really rewarding career.
But rather than just hear myself and Ari talk all night, we have some fantastic people here to tell you about some of the opportunities that are presenting themselves now. As Ari mentioned, there is always development in STEM, it's always changing, and we have some academics here who are going to be able to talk us through some of those areas that are experiencing growth. So we've got Dr. Catherine Amos and Dr. Stephen Kidd, who are going to go through some of those areas with us now.
Hello. So I'm Stephen Kidd, by the way, and this is Catherine.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome. All right, are you doing the slides for us? Great, thank you. So just as a bit of an overview, we're going to give you a whistle-stop tour on some of the things that we think are the most exciting opportunities in the STEM area here in Adelaide. On the slides that you see, there's going to be information about the degree programs we offer that relate to those areas. We're not going to talk about that. It's all in the degree program booklets you've got. There's information online, and there are people here who can have those conversations with you later. So when it comes to space, we're talking about more than just sending astronauts out into space, although you probably know that we do have a University of Adelaide graduate who has done that. Now in Adelaide, we've got the Australian Space Agency that is launching here with offices just over the road in Lot 14 this year. There's also a satellite launching company that will be sending satellites up into space, hopefully later this year, but they've got permissions to do that based on a launch site in the Eyre Peninsula. It's forecast that there are going to be 20,000 new jobs created in the area of space within the next 10 years. Now that's in Australia, but I foresee from the activity that a lot of those are going to be based in Adelaide. And some of the things that that covers that you may be a bit surprised about, there's a lot of research and teaching expertise here on the application of agriculture to space, on mineral resources in space, on a lot of technical engineering problem solving that needs to be done. So there's a whole range of different multidisciplinary areas that interact in this field, and there's a huge growth in this area in Adelaide with a lot of expertise.
Excellent. I tell you what, I might walk over here. Look, in the theme of sustainability, both in terms of the science, the research and the development, there's a whole set of industries that are growing up to enable us as humankind to have an environment with resources that are sustainable into the future. And once again, as Catherine said, there's a set of programs, degrees and courses and experiences that we offer to prepare our graduates to work in these new innovative industries in sustainability. Excellent. See, this guy is right into it. What I would say is earlier this month, the United Nations did a report. They've released a summary of that report, which alarmingly shows that there are close to 1 million species that are going to be extinct, that are on the extinct list. And these include 40% of amphibians and 30% of coral. Coral, apparently, I'm not a coral, it's in the sea, it's off the, yeah. Apparently there was lots of it, and it's dying away at an alarming rate. And there's all sorts of things that coral feeds into, in not just tourism, but into the biodiversity and our natural planet. So it's really important that we obviously do research and development, but we produce graduates that are going to be working within these fields. And I think we're quite good at making sure that we have science and engineering that are in the theme of sustainability. One thing that is also really exciting is how we measure and monitor our biodiversity. And we can use all sorts of unmanned drones and facilities that we've got and we've developed within our science faculty here at the University of Adelaide to watch and measure remote biodiversity, either plants or animals.
So moving nicely on from the topic of sustainability and really closely interlinked is the need to focus on future energy and natural resource availability and exploitation. So one of the key areas of focus here at the University of Adelaide, both from a teaching perspective and also in research, are really covering that whole broad area. So both looking into ways that we can transition to a carbon neutral future and minimise the impact of a growing population on our planet, but also looking at how can we maintain the quality of life that we have at the moment and that we're all pretty attached to. So we have people with expertise in all sorts of different areas: wind energy, solar energy, biomass, geothermal, and then kind of below the ground, so oil and gas and mineral resources. These are all critical areas and resources that South Australia has. And so there are jobs in all of those areas locally and a real need for expertise in those fields. Now, I've got my cheat sheet here because there's numbers. Something that is worth mentioning, that in renewable energy projects, there's a huge amount of investment in the state at the moment. And the number that blew me away is that there's an investment into renewable energy projects in the Spencer Gulf at the moment of $1.37 billion. That's a huge amount of money, and it's going to result in a growth in jobs in that area. There's also a $12 million solar farm being developed near Renmark, and there's new discoveries of copper recently up at the Olympic Dam mine. I think that's it. I'll hand over to you.
Right, that sounds really exciting. Look, food for the future. I think in terms of food production, chemical engineering and environmental engineering, there are major developments that are happening in our research and development here, but also how we engage with industry in this context. You know, as the environment tackles new and various challenges, such as climate change and other things, it is going to be really important how we as a community and as scientists tackle those problems. You know, if we look at the planet and we take away the ocean, we take away the Arctic, Antarctic and Greenland and all the deserts, we end up with 1/32 of the planet's space is available for farming. And what that comes down to, actually since the 1950s, is that's been reducing by about 10 million hectares per year. So we've got more, we've got less and less space to do farming, and we've got now 7 billion people who need to be fed. So we need innovative and clever ways for our food production to feed a growing population. Here at the University of Adelaide, Out at the Waite campus, we have a 130-year-old research facility that's currently is the third largest research facility in agriculture, food and wine on the planet. They do some really innovative research in genomics, in genetic engineering, and looking at proteins that enable plants and agriculture to tolerate stresses. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour, fungal infections in wheat alone cost the Australian economy $1 billion a year. If we were able to have wheat that was tolerant of these fungal species, then that's going to be a huge saving, as well as producing a lot more wheat for us. Yep, I think that's about me.
All right, on to future technologies. And this is one of those things where there's probably a lack of understanding about what that really means. And it's always changing. And I think this is one of those key areas where you've probably heard that, 20 or 30 years ago, people would graduate from university and they would get a job, and that would be the thing that they did until they retired. And nowadays, people have many, many different careers and do different things, and that most of those future careers don't exist yet. And this is a really obvious area to highlight that. So by future technologies and smart technologies, we're talking about things like trustworthy autonomous vehicles, driverless vehicles. We've got students who are working with BMW to come up with developments in that area at the moment. We're talking about big data. So people who like numbers and working with huge data sets, then big data is a really huge area at the moment that companies are needing more and more expertise in. This covers things like using drones to assist in hazards, so natural hazards and disasters, sending drones out to go and help people resolve those problems. We've got at the University of Adelaide a world-leading Australian Institute of Machine Learning and a huge amount of expertise in artificial intelligence as well. So they're doing a lot of kind of theory development in the area of machine learning, and it's applied to a whole range of different technologies. There's also a big strength in the area of robotics, and I'm going to have to use my cheat sheet here because robotics is not my area of expertise, but their focus is on motion control, autonomy, and multi-robot collaboration, as well as the interaction between robots and people. So there's going to be a huge scope for those areas to develop into something completely new and exciting into the future. And there's a lot of strength in those areas in the degrees that we offer here.
Right. Last but not least, biomedical innovation. So biomedical science and biotechnology is a massive field of science. It's a massive field in research and development, and it's a growing industry globally, but really importantly also in Australia and in Adelaide. Yes, I actually mean that. Both in terms of biomedical engineering, pharmaceutical engineering, but more specifically in the molecular and the genetic discoveries that are being made. A few years ago, health industries in South Australia started a concept around the biomedical city, Biomed City, and down the other end of North Terrace, about $4 billion is being invested in infrastructure to develop an industry in biomedical science in Adelaide. You've got the new RAH, you've got the SEMRI, and then a new SEMRI building that's being built that's going to house a proton therapy unit. That's the biggest one of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, alongside all the other building and people that are being employed down that end of town. Alongside that, what's happening is we're attracting big pharmaceutical and biotech companies to Adelaide to bring their clinical trials and other enterprises here to Adelaide. We're also enabling startup companies to start up in South Australia and in Adelaide. It's really exciting. Can you get a sense that I'm excited by it? I want to go back and do a biomedical degree. That third one down actually is really good. But there are a lot of opportunities. I was talking, at the University of Adelaide, we try to engage our students with industry and with some of these opportunities that are growing in Adelaide. And one of the things that is a message coming across to me is that there's all this growth in biomedical science and in biotechnology in South Australia, and we need graduates. We need graduates in STEM who are prepared and ready to work in these new jobs. I think that's it.
All right, to finish off, we wanted to emphasise that just as important as these areas of application of our research expertise and teaching focus are the career readiness attributes and skills that we really focus on in all of our degree programmes. Those of you who are sitting here considering doing a Bachelor of Engineering degree, you'll know that doing an internship is a part of those Bachelor of Engineering programmes. It's required for accreditation. It's something that engineers get to do. Something that's new and maybe you're not aware of is that we've made changes across the whole university so that for the Bachelor of Engineering students, those internships are being embedded more thoroughly into the programme with more support wrapped around them. For all other students in all science, maths, but all other programmes in the university, we're committed to creating internship opportunities and overseas exchange opportunities for all of our students into the future. Now, we're not quite there yet, but I'm pretty confident that any student in any of these STEM fields who really wants to do an internship in your degree, starting from this year really, then there's going to be opportunities to do that for you. There's also a lot of kind of conversations around what you really care about, identifying what your passion is and thinking about how you want to build that in. So you can use internships as a way of trying out different jobs and seeing whether that's something that would suit you or not, seeing what different workplaces are like. You can also use it to think about whether you want to do an honours degree, if that's not something you might sign up to straight away, and potentially line up a really exciting honours project, either with a team of academics doing really blue skies research, or with some of these amazing industry opportunities so that you can go and have an experience of doing a research project with those companies.
Could I just jump in there and say, one of the really exciting things that we've been able to introduce for our fundamental and basic science students is how they translate the really exciting and cutting-edge knowledge that we're giving them, how they translate that knowledge into a workplace. We talk here about work-integrated learning. So how do we challenge ourselves with new tasks and critical thinking, problem solving? How do we interact with other people for all those translatable skills? And we can do that through work-integrated learning, and most importantly, what we've introduced is real internships, and these opportunities are great for producing graduates who are ready to work in the STEM field. Yep.
Yeah. Final thing, for anyone sitting there thinking, well, that's an internship's all very well, but I don't know what I want to do. It's completely normal. So there's most people, I think, start uni and they don't really know what they want to do. They might sign up to a particular type of engineering, but not be sure whether they want to be, a mechanical engineer or an electronics engineer. There are opportunities to change within sciences and between sciences and engineering, or do joint degrees. And internships are one way of checking that out, but there's all sorts of other resources available.
Yep.
And I think we're handing back to you to talk about that now.
I think we're running out of time, but absolutely, you can change what you want to do. Obviously, I'm a microbiologist, so you're all going to end up doing microbiology. But yeah, I feel more than happy that you do something else.
Thank you, guys. So you've heard about some awesome opportunities, and I think the thing that stands out most to me is that they're not happening interstate, they're not happening overseas, they're happening here in South Australia, so you don't need to go too far from home to actually find these fantastic opportunities. So they're really close. In terms of the stuff that we can offer you here at the university, we have some awesome facilities. If you went on a campus tour, you might have been able to see a few of them. To mention a few, we've got an observatory on campus. We have an awesome 3D printing suite, which has one of the biggest 3D printers in the Southern Hemisphere. That's something that I'm quite passionate about and love going into, because they print some really awesome things. If you came in a little bit early, you might have seen the 3D printed violin that was actually done in that, and it's fully functional. And they're doing things along those lines, even going into like biomedical stuff. Other facilities, there's things like an animal hospital, which is staffed by some of the vet students. There's a brand new makerspace, which is open to engineering students to do everything from designing their projects to going all the way to the end and actually machining them up with some of the tools that we have available. We spoke a little bit about degrees, not too much, but we're going to have an opportunity to discuss that a little bit after. But in terms of actually coming to university from high school, it can be a little bit daunting, but it doesn't need to be a scary experience. There's a lot of support available from staff at the university, and there's a lot of transitional services available Obviously, you've got your big O week where you come in, get oriented, and then hopefully be set up for success going forward. But if you do struggle throughout your studies, there's some amazing support services available, like free doctors' services, free mental health clinics, as well as drop-in centres. So if you're struggling with some of the content that you're getting through, whether it's maths, physics, biology, chemistry, or even writing, there's centres that you can go into free of charge, sit down, work through your assignments with academics or PhD students, or even students who are in their final year who have gone through some of those subjects, who are going to be able to relate to you on that personal level. In terms of other stuff, there's academia. That's a big part of university, but the university culture is massive as well. We pride ourselves on being a community of learners as well as just a community as a whole. So there's groups, societies that will meet pretty much every passion that you have, whether it's sporting, whether it's film, or whether it's even just like-minded students who are studying similar stuff to you. If you're passionate about something, you're going to be able to find a group of like-minded people at university to share that passion with.
It's funny, actually, Tom and I were having a conversation earlier today about who our favourite student groups were. In terms of clubs and societies, Chicken Nugget Appreciation Society. Not a joke. Real club. Sporting teams, the University of Adelaide Quidditch team. Best in the state. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. I nearly tripped over a chair, but I've recovered perfectly. Okay, and now we get to the bit that you've all been waiting for. These guys have been dreading. Can I please invite our panel to have a seat in their chairs in the middle of the spotlight? I'm not trying to make it sound scary at all. So we have expertly trained them. Not really, we haven't at all. So what we'll do is we're going to get each panel member to introduce themselves and pass the microphone down. After they've had a bit of an introduction and given you an overview of who they are, we're opening it up to questions for the panellists, Stephen and Catherine, and then we have a variety of other university staff here to answer anything in particular. One thing we're very excited about today is that we actually have an industry representative from SA Water here. So Michaeli is getting a very special introduction, which I've not cleared with her, so she's not prepared for this at all. Michaeli has had quite a bit of involvement with the university, and so has SA Water. So SA Water sponsor our Women in STEM Careers program, which is encouraging women to pursue careers in STEM and also STEM subjects at university. In fact, they are the major sponsor for the program. We also collaborate with SA Water across a variety of other initiatives with research projects and as well with our research institutes. I don't want to spoil too much though, so I will hand over to her first and then she'll pass over to Luke.
Hi. This is quite daunting for me. Standing and talking in front of people, not my favourite thing to do, but one thing I am really passionate about is graduates and career opportunities, so hence why I am standing here. So sitting here, so for those of you that might not know, I hope you do, SA Water provides all your water and wastewater services, so anytime you take a drink, anytime you flush the toilet, that's our people working really hard to make sure that that happens. And when I sat there and reflected on that, none of that would be possible without STEM at all. We would not have our water services. So you would not have safe drinking water, so we wouldn't have our scientists that make sure of that. We wouldn't have our engineers that design the pipes and the systems that get it to us. We wouldn't have any of it. So I'm really lucky to work with so many brilliant people in STEM, so from our people in our labs to our engineering department, pure engineering, and then there's engineers all over the business. We've even got an aerospace engineer who works in customer research now. So STEM career can literally take you anywhere. Our chief executive is an engineer. My general manager of people and safety is also an engineer. So you can actually work with people. Sitting here, I had written a bunch of stuff, but then sitting here and listening to the other speakers, what excited me was how true everything that they said is for an employer. So listening to Ari on employability skills, everything he said is absolutely right. So we take for granted that all the grads that come out have the same degree. What sets you apart is you as an individual, how you interact with each other, how you support each other, how you communicate with each other, how you solve problems together. So together is one of our key values. We don't get anything done without doing it together. Listening to Catherine and Stephen talking and showing you all the different degrees, what was amazing is I was sitting there going, oh yeah, we've got grads in that. Yeah, we've got grads in that. Every single page we have grads in. So sustainability, we have conservation people, we have people doing revegetation of areas around our waterways. We have environmental scientists in terms of making sure that our footprint doesn't make too much of a bad footprint. Chem, we have a lot of chem people, so chemical engineers looking at our processes, looking at the energy and natural resources sheet. So we have a whole project running in the state now, so we're part of that multi-billion-dollar investment in terms of what we want as SA Water is to, and I'm not going to be any technical, I'm not going to get technical, but we want to have a zero energy cost future. So that means that we can reduce our customers' bills and reduce our carbon footprint. So we're one of the biggest electricity users, moving all that water around. So those solar farms and some pretty new technology in battery storage, it's going all around the state, and that's one of our key things as well. The smart technology, so that's another area that we've invested heavily in. And again, it all relies on STEM. That relies on people to take that data in. That comes from, you know, we've got smart meters all over the city that are bringing in millions of pieces of data a second. That takes STEM people to work out what that means, hopefully work out when there's going to be a break, so we can hopefully make sure it doesn't happen before peak hour traffic. But again, STEM people are going to fix that. And I think the other key thing for us was really around how Adelaide Uni supports their students. And I guess what we see from students coming out of Adelaide Uni, they come out with confidence, they come out with the ability to network, they come out with all the employability skills that are really important to us. The societies that were just mentioned, so we have a lot of people that, sorry, that's just weird. We have a lot of our grads that actually win roles have been volunteers as part of their student societies. It develops them in ways that, you know, are immeasurable. They organise functions, they have to manage budgets, they come in with a whole skill set that is really valuable because it means we don't have to teach it. I will be open to any more questions after, but I'll leave it at that. But essentially, you know, the future is STEM. It really is, and has such a range of career options that are really exciting. 85% of our graduate intake is STEM, and working with our grads is the most exciting part of my job. The innovation and creativity that comes out it's always surprising, but it's amazing. So definitely a career path to consider. Happy to take questions after, but thank you.
Hey everyone, I thought I'd just give you a sort of a brief background. I did a Bachelor of Science, majored in genetics and microbiology. Then did my honours in genetics at SA Pathology, then worked for a couple of years in clinical research in the intensive care unit at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. And now I'm coordinator of the Eye Bank of South Australia, so how do I put that into a nutshell? Coordinate and supply all the ocular tissue for transplant across South Australia. And I guess that really summarises the point that everyone's been making before me and probably will ahead of me. The versatility of what you will learn at uni can cross multiple spaces. You know, I went from in a lab to now organising or attempting to organise ophthalmologists and surgery, as well as still doing research on the side for multiple places. So the skill set that I learnt in university has given what I've needed to build a career in where I want to go.
Hello, my name is Mariana. I'm currently a second year student studying a Bachelor of Science Advanced and Bachelor of Maths. I'm hoping to major in chemistry, microbiology and statistics. The beauty of my degrees is they're both very flexible, so I don't really have a firm idea as to what my future career aspirations are exactly going to be, but the flexibility in my degree or degrees allows me to kind of just follow my passions and see where they take me. My journey from high school to university was a pretty unique one. I undertook, I participated in the Head Start program, so I actually got to do a year of a full year subject in my high school, my year 12 at university. So I got to have first-hand experience in what it takes to study at uni, and the And my biggest piece of advice would be just to study something that you love and that you have passion for, because, I mean, anything at university is a challenge, but as long as you have a desire to actually learn about it, you won't mind the extra hours you have to put in to do well. So yeah, the support services at Adelaide University have really assisted me, and the clubs. I'm part of the Science Association and the Maths Society, and they have been really great to meet people that are not only just studying my courses, but also just have similar interests. And so yeah, that's me.
So good evening everyone, my name is Rebecca Starrick and I am an agribusiness consultant with Rural Directions. So what does that mean? Essentially I go out onto farms, chat with farmers and make their farm businesses better. So I studied a Bachelor of Ag Science, and the beauty about Ag Science is it covers all three of the letters that we're here talking about tonight. So science, technology, engineering and maths. And you need all three of those to work in this area of agriculture. There's 1 in 5 jobs for every agriculture graduate as well. So as soon as you come out of uni, you'll have a job waiting for you, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. When my cohort graduated this year, all of us had jobs by our graduation, which is something pretty special and not something you can say about every single industry. In my ag science journey, I met a lot of really brilliant people, and the thing that I loved about Adelaide is we're all studying together. So all of us Aggies developed really good friendships and deep relationships that are going to get us really far in industry, because that's something that's quite special about ag, is that a lot of your connections come into play later in life. Ag is such a brilliant career path to be a part of as well. It's something that you use every single day when you go to the fridge and get a piece of fruit out or pour yourself a coffee in the morning. It's in every single aspect of our lives, and one of the brilliant scientists that I take a lot of inspiration from is a guy called Norman Borlaug, and he is an ag scientist who grew up in the US, and he's actually credited with saving 1 billion lives from poverty. So in all of these areas that we've been talking about this evening, ag is in every single one of them. Agriculturalists are the biggest supporters of good climate change policy. We're the biggest environmentalists. We're here to look after our land and to get the best out of it as well. We've got to do more on less, so this is what we're trying to achieve. Right, thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Stella Naylor. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working for a couple of years now. I work for a company called AECOM, and we essentially are interested in infrastructure. So in Adelaide here, we do a lot of design work. So essentially, we will talk to someone like SA Water, and they will come to us and they say, we need new pipes, and I will go and make sure those pipes are the right size, are the right strength, are going in the right direction, and are going to be the right price as well. So as a civil engineer, I'm interested in everything from the road down. So I can do things from talking about traffic. I can talk about geotechnical engineer, which is all about soils and soil strengths. I can talk about pipes. I can talk about stormwater and drainage and all that sort of stuff as well. So civil engineering is a really broad type of engineering, but an engineering that has to think about a whole heap of different competing issues as well. When someone asked me when I was in year 12 about what I wanted to do with my life and my career, I had absolutely no idea. And generally in those situations, you think more about, I guess, what you really like at school. And I was like, okay, cool, I like maths. That's a good start, I guess. I really like biology. Okay. But I also really like English, and I like drama, and I like geography. And then I was just far too confused, really. Until I came to one of these events, essentially. And someone got up here from the chemical engineering department, and they talked about what engineering actually is. And it's not just about looking at roads and looking at soil and looking at pipes and that sort of stuff, but it's about what we were talking about before, the complex problem solving. But a little bit more than that, it's about understanding and thinking about the world as a system and understanding what affects that system and how we can make that system better, essentially. So I fell in love with that idea and I pursued that into a civil and environmental engineering degree here. But at the back of my mind was always, but I still really like all of the other stuff as well. You know, STEM's awesome, but you know, what about like, creativity? Obviously, creativity is a huge part of engineering. Innovation is a huge part of STEM careers. But the reason I ended up choosing Adelaide Uni in particular to study my degree is that they allowed me to also pursue areas of study outside of STEM. So I ended up doing a combined degree. So I did a Bachelor of Engineering, but I also did a Bachelor of Arts, and I majored in English Literature, which not very normal. I think in my graduating year there were 2 people who got that degree, so that was a little bit different. But the really cool thing is when I sat down for my interview with ACOM, we didn't talk about my engineering degree, we talked about my arts degree. And so I think if there's any advice that I can give you guys today is, number one, engineering is awesome, and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me is pursuing a career in engineering. But also continue to pursue the things that you're really passionate about, because what brings you passion and what brings you happiness in life is the things that are going to be talked, that people are going to talk to you about when you actually start your career. And I ended up getting a job because I loved reading books, not necessarily because I had an engineering degree. So that's my...
Hello, my name is Daniel. So I'm currently studying computer science at Adelaide. I thought I would just tell you a little bit about where I've been since high school and where I am now. So I graduated high school in 2015, and I had a gap year in 2016. During that year, I did some missions training / work in Southeast Asia, and I spent 6 months trying to figure out what I wanted to do and really failing. So I ended up just going to Adelaide, which turned out to be a great decision. So I'm studying computer science advanced, in parentheses. I don't know it's not up there, but whatever. So I did uni, had my first year, and over the summer I had the privilege of being able to do research with the university here with a great supervisor. And I also managed to do some contract work with a local startup company. In my second year of computer science, I became the president of the computer science club here at University of Adelaide. And I was also on the founding committee for the competitive programming club and the Women in STEM Society. And I think that's all. And at the end of my second year, I had the privilege of interning at Google. So I interned at Google over this last summer, so that was November to February. And here I am in my third and final year. And at the end of the year, I will be working at Google or Microsoft. I just need to sign my offer. Sometime this week, actually. So I guess I just want to share that. So if you have any questions, you know what you can ask me. But I think in general, since everyone else is giving their advice, I would just love to encourage you all to consider STEM. Definitely consider computer science and programming. Because what's already been said, it's a really great field because it's so creative. You get to innovate and you get to see problems, see areas where things aren't being done as well as they can be. And then you can design a solution and actually create that solution and actually give it to people. And you can be a part of that entire process, which I really love. And particularly if you're wanting to study computer science or programming or software engineering, definitely do it at Adelaide University and definitely try and get into the advanced degree. It's been really great. Who should I pass this on to? Anyone? Okay.
Okay, now the moment you've all been waiting for, questions. Where everything is on the table. You can ask about work, you can ask about future aspirations, life, philosophy. The only question that is not on the table is how tall are you, Ari? And the answer is 5 foot tall enough. Oh, that one did not land. Okay, well, no worries. I'll recover excellently from that and let you know that because this is a STEM Careers Night, we have a fantastic piece of technology with us. This is our microphone for the evening. It is called a catch box. What this means is this lovely, squishy, very safe box is going to be flying around the room and is a mobile microphone. So you've got to get really into it, throw it as far as you can to the people who put up their hands and ask questions. You will need to hold it right up to your face to be heard, but it will hopefully work without a hitch, otherwise we'll have someone running up and down the stairs like a maniac with a microphone. No. Well, that's okay. I will tell a science joke. I felt the whole room cringe at that. Yeah, so look, never trust an atom. They make up everything. Oh, look. Hey, pity! Okay, well, in that case, what I'll do is I'll open up with a question. Nope. So this question is to those recent graduates and industry representative. Could you give a bit of insight on what it was like going from university to the workplace? What were some of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them?
Well, I've got the microphone, so I'm going to talk. So I've been, as I said before, I've been working for a couple of years. When I first transitioned into industry, for me, it wasn't a huge difference from my university experience. Obviously, I was working with people who, the groups that I was working in, everyone cared a lot more suddenly, which was amazing. But also the people that I was working with had a huge amount of experience that I could learn from. And from going from university where everyone's on the same playing field to suddenly being in a group where everyone knows more than you is quite daunting. And so it felt like every day I was just treading water, trying to, learn as much as I possibly could in every situation. And that was really exhausting. In terms of contact hours and that sort of stuff, my life didn't change that much. I went from a 9 to 5, I treated my university degree as a 9 to 5 job, and then I went into something that was similar to a 9 to 5 job. And so I was there for the same amount of time, but I was coming home at the end of the day just feeling exhausted because I was just learning so much more. And that's probably the main difference that I found.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, you're kind of thrown into it a little bit, and you're taking on so much information at the same time, and particularly for me. So I went into my degree wanting to do agronomy, which is kind of like a plant consultant. So you go out onto farm, tell farmers what's wrong with their crop, and then you come up with the solution on how to fix it. I've now ended up in something almost completely different, which is looking at a whole business and working out what's wrong with the business and then working out how to fix it. So I think there's a bit of science involved with that, but taking a whole science-based approach to looking at a business plus science plus maths as well involved with that was a bit of a challenge as well. So yeah, that was a bit different. Also, I suppose in uni, particularly for my cohort, we were quite close, so not having those close friendships around anymore was a bit of a challenge to get used to. We're now spread all over the country. There's people working on cattle stations in the top end looking at environmental management, and there's people working in greenhouses looking at renewable energy and smart management of nutrients in greenhouses with vegetables, through to people like me who went and did a bit of business instead of science. So, yeah.
I guess from a science background, it was a bit challenging going from lab into working with critically ill people. So going from working with mice to people that have obvious feelings. And then now I work with patients getting ocular transplants to retrieving ocular tissue from deceased persons. So you can do a whole range of interesting things, and sink or swim, I generally say.
Well, on that very, very optimistic note, I clearly overhyped the catch box, so we have reverted back to slightly older school, but still not too old school technology, and Nicole will be running up and down the stairs, and I'm sure I'll hear a lot about that tomorrow. We'll open it to you guys. Does anyone... Tom? Does anyone have any questions for our panel, as well as our academics? Don't be shy. It's okay, Nicole's prepared to run. Fantastic.
This is for the current students. What is the difference between a standard degree and your advanced degrees?
I guess in my science degree, the difference between the general science degree and the advanced stream would probably be we get more opportunities to do lab placements within our degree. So I actually completed a lab placement for 6 weeks after my first year, which is quite unusual. Usually it's at the end of my second year, but I was able to do that a year early, I guess, because of my advanced stream.
So for computer science, it's more of a research-focused degree, and it gives you the opportunity to do research while you're doing undergraduate. So I've had the privilege to be able to, in my second year, I did some work with a researcher here at Adelaide. In my third year now, I'm also doing some research with another supervisor, and the researchers here at Adelaide are really fantastic in computer science. They're all super friendly, but also very, very knowledgeable, and they're doing a lot of exciting research. And I think the other thing as well, which is kind of obvious, is that the advanced tag just sounds better on your resume. And it's true. And like you talk to companies and they're like, computer science, advanced, ooh, well, give him an interview. But also it means that within the university, I think it demands some level of kind of, not really respect, but I think researchers kind of acknowledge that, okay, this student was good enough at school to get a 95 ATAR plus, and they generally provide more opportunities, or they're more open to working with you if you want to do research over the summer in your first year, which is definitely difficult to do otherwise.
One thing to note as well is that if you don't potentially get the score to go straight into an advanced degree, there's no problems at all. You can actually transfer into the degree later on. So if you went, for example, into the Bachelor of Science or Computer Science, at the end of your first 12 months, using your university grades, you could then transfer over into the advanced stream. And many of the advanced components don't actually commence until year 2, so you wouldn't actually be missing any of the exclusive opportunities in those degrees. Now, we had a question down the front here. Oh, no? Okay, we don't have a question down the front here. Anyone else? Just awkwardly dancing. Okay. Oh, right up the back, Nicole. All right, well, here's another science joke for you. Think like a proton, be positive. That's right, that's actually on my badge, so yeah. I think that bought me just enough time.
How necessary do you think it would be to do a double degree at university in terms of like employment after you finish?
So,
you will hear me if I don't use the microphone.
There's a lot of
No, bad luck. Okay. In terms of double degrees and concurrent degrees, for reasons we don't quite understand, or maybe it's the breadth of interest in students who are now coming into university, we're seeing a substantial increase. And so it was interesting that you did an engineering degree with an arts degree, and we are seeing a lot more of those type of either doubles and concurrents. And if I say double or concurrent, do you know the difference? Okay, so a double degree, in order to complete, it's slightly longer usually, probably around 4 years, and you don't have to complete as many units. There's a recognition that you're studying across 2 areas. But with a concurrent degree, so as an example, not necessarily STEM-based, but if you were to do animal science and a degree in animal behaviour, they're not a double, they're a concurrent, and you have to fulfil all elements of each degree. Okay, so you have to complete the required number of units for each component. Okay, so we are seeing a rise, and I can only assume that students are coming in with such a breadth of interest now, and as it became quite obvious, it isn't necessarily one degree doesn't necessarily dictate where you're going to end up. It might be a pathway, but then the other degree assumes as much importance. So it's quite an interesting thing that we're watching.
Thanks, Jill. From an employability perspective, it will depend on the individual that is hiring you as well. So particularly for some of the roles, if you're looking at something that is very people-focused, potentially having a double degree with something that is more people-focused may be beneficial to you. But at the end of the day, it's personal preference. If you really, really want to get full in-depth knowledge in one field, do that as a single degree. Or as Jill said, if you're wanting to get a breadth of experience, do a double degree because you're getting more of a variety of experience, but you will lose some of those subjects to make it fit. So basically we take 2 3-year degrees, or in the case of engineering, a 4 and a 3, and we smush them together, which means we do pull out a lot of the required subjects in there too. Now we had another question over here.
Yeah, a few people have mentioned flexibility within courses, and also somebody mentioned at the beginning that lots of people when they're 18 don't actually know what they want to do. I was interested in maybe the first couple of years of, say, the science degree, how much flexibility there is, and you might end up doing, I don't know, biology or environment or biomechanics or any of those subjects. How much flexibility is in the first couple of years before you end up specialising on those subjects?
Yeah, no worries. I think we had a relevant example.
There's great flexibility even between the Bachelor of Sciences and the Bachelor of Health Sciences as well. I knew pretty well what I wanted to do going into it, so I was pretty stagnant in chemistry, microbiology, genetics, those sorts of things. But I had plenty of friends going through university that swapped between pharmaceutical sciences and then jumping into a biological, more lab-based science, and then not sort of figuring out what they wanted to do until 2 years after the fact, and they've got degrees and got jobs in what they ended up wanting to do through STEM. So you can jump around. I don't know if
Also, I just wanted to add to that as well that I didn't start my university experience at doing engineering. I started with a Bachelor of Science. I started in a Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts, and knowing that I kind of wanted to go into engineering, but not necessarily which engineering and all of that sort of stuff. And the subjects that I did in my first year were completely transferable. So, for example, all first-year engineering students have to do like 2 maths, a year's worth of maths. And you do that maths with everyone who does a maths degree, everyone who does an engineering degree, regardless of what engineering they do. Similarly, there's engineering-based physics topics that most engineering students will do as well. And so I was able to take those subjects while completing, I didn't do the right subjects in year 12, and that's why I had to start a science degree before. But yeah, it was all transferable, and I could pick the right subjects to make that transition really easy, and I didn't lose any time.
And we'll just get to Mariana.
Just with me as a personal example, I actually just started in solely a science degree when I first came to university. I didn't have a maths degree at all, and I actually learnt through my first year of uni how much I really enjoyed and had such a passion for maths, and I transferred into a concurrent maths and science degree. Also, you don't, just within a science degree, usually you don't actually have to pick what you're going to major in until the end of second year. So there's you get 2 years to actually decide and pick and choose. And in first year, as you said, there's basically everybody studies the same chemistry or the same maths. So there's a lot of time you get to decide and a lot of flexibility.
From an administrative perspective as well, if you do make a change, wherever possible, we will try and award you with as much credit that overlaps between the 2 degrees as we can. We'd like you to get through your qualifications at the pace that best suits you. However, the further you go along, the harder it can be for us to get matching credit depending on the number of core subjects you may not have done in one degree or the other. So our staff in our student support hubs in both sciences and engineering are really, really good at helping you with this process and making sure that you're getting the most out of that transition. We'll open it up to another question. Down the front, Nicole.
Hi, what are some employment opportunities for pure mathematics majors? Because,
So in the infrastructure space, so we use a lot of big data in terms of influencing the decisions we make in terms of our design. And in particular, I know a lot of people who have engineering degrees who are then going on to do postgraduate study in things like maths to help them in terms of traffic and transport engineering, because that's a huge area of infrastructure that requires a lot of data processing.
I'll just say a couple of things. One of the roles I have in the Faculty of Engineering, Computer and Maths Science is involved with processes around getting students into internships, and we've had a lot of interesting conversations this year with cybersecurity companies. So there's quite a bit of activity from state government trying to attract Silicon Valley companies to Adelaide. Some are already based here. So we've been able to place a pure maths student into a cybersecurity internship this year. There's also, big kind of finance companies that will take maths students. All sorts of engineering firms will take people who've just focused on maths, because a lot of those skills are transferable.
Just on big data as well, in agriculture, so ag is aiming to be a $50 billion industry by 2030. So there's a huge opportunity in terms of taking data that's already coming off of people's tractors and people's farms and working out ways to actually use that and get more production from our land. Big data is such actually a huge issue as well, because we're taking all this information but no one knows how to use it yet. And there's, if you look at any other sector, so computing, social media, there's a few big players. With ag, big data and ag technology, there's not actually as many big players. So there's huge room for new ideas to come through, new ways to problem solve with regards to making machines talk to each other, or taking information from our machinery and working out what to do with it, because most people don't.
Fantastic. Okay, we have time for one more question to the panel. And look at that, Nicole. It's nice and close. That was lucky for me.
This one's for the current students. So with the research placements, what was it like? What kind of stuff did you get up to? And how did you go about acquiring those so early in your study?
With my research placement, it was actually a scholarship I had to apply for, so I emailed the research professor beforehand and had a few meetings, and then wrote the application with him and then sent it off. My research actually involved the computational analysis of a plant genome, so I did a lot of computer work with big data and dealt with a lot of data and bioinformatics, and it was a bit of a steep learning curve just because I was a first year at the time, and I was working with PhD students and people who were, had their postdoctorate. So, it was a steep learning curve, but they were all really helpful and understood, and they were just really interested in helping me get the most out of my placement, which was really great.
So for myself, I did some volunteering in first year, like open day and things like that. And I met a researcher who was doing work in computer science education. And I thought it was really interesting. So I just chatted to her about it and asked if I could get involved over the summer. And I ended up being able to do that. So I was paid over the summer, which is very nice, to write a report kind of looking at career advice in high schools and what tools there are for year 12s and year 11s and how they go about making career decisions, which is kind of relevant now, isn't it? But yeah, so if you want to get involved with research or anything at uni, it's really about networking, going and doing volunteering and just talking to researchers who you're interested in.
And we've got a current student sitting at the very back. You can see her with her lovely red hair. I thought I'd make you all turn around because you were supposed to be looking all over the room following the catch box. But Ash, would you like to close this one up?
Thanks, Ari. My name's Ash. I'm a final year Bachelor of Science advanced student majoring in biochemistry and in genetics. And I've been fortunate to do 3 placements now. I did a placement at the Centre for Cancer Biology in my second semester of first year. And then over this past summer, I was at the Genome Editing Laboratory at SAMRI. And at the moment, I'm in the Chronic Myeloid Leukemia Laboratory at SAMRI. So each of those experiences has been really different, and each of them has taught me something really unique about the research environment and about how I function in the research environment, what I'm passionate about and what I might like to do with my life. It's been an amazing experience to learn some cutting-edge techniques that I might not have been able to learn at university otherwise, because they are really genuinely cutting-edge and only in active research laboratories. And it's really helped me understand what direction I want to take my career in, and it's helped me line up a laboratory for postgraduate work next year. So, as I said, I did one in first year, like Marianne said, and it is a bit unusual. And my only advice about that would be just ask. If you are enthusiastic, find a lab or industry or a connection that represents what you're interested in, and just say, hey, I'm here, I'd like to intern, I want to learn. People in industry and people in research are really keen to hear from students who are wanting to learn and to wanting to be a part of their world. You can't lose, so I would just encourage everybody to grab the opportunity and learn as much as you can.
And I think that's a really, really valid point as well. So one of the key things when it comes to these sort of opportunities is put yourself out there, be proactive. The worst thing that can happen is that someone isn't available, but that doesn't mean that you don't get a valuable contact out of that. That does conclude our time for the Q&A. So can we please give our panel a round of applause? Now, these guys will be available in a moment. Tom's just going to bring us home.
Yes. So we are almost at the end of the formal proceedings. Just wanted to tell you about some more opportunities to learn, because essentially coming out to tonight is an awesome start. Essentially all I recommend is go out to as many possible events to learn about the amazing opportunities that are presenting themselves in STEM, and then learn as much as you possibly can about where you want to go. Obviously once you're at university you can chop and change, but if you're the most informed as you can possibly be, you'll be able to make that first decision as accurately as possible. So Open Day is an awesome one to do that one. So this year it's on Sunday, the 18th of August. All of the universities have them on the same weekend, so you can get out to all of them, learn as much as you possibly can, and figure out which one's going to be the right one for you, and to figure out which degree is going to be the right one for you as well. Ingenuity is an awesome one as well. So this one's more for the engineering, computer and math sciences faculty. Essentially all of our engineering students do 4 years, and in that 4th year they do a project. So essentially what Ingenuity is, it's a big showcase of those projects at the Adelaide Convention Centre, and you would have heard from the inside of the students. Honestly, that's my opinion. Hearing from students is the best way to understand how the degrees actually run, what they're actually like, and the best way to understand them truly. So Ingenuity is a great way of doing that. You can talk to the students, talk to them about what they're passionate about, see their projects, and then, yeah, learn as much as you possibly can. In terms of going forward, events like this come up. Obviously, we'd love to see you as many as possible. Best way to stay in touch and to see them come up would be just by following us on Facebook, because we post things like public lectures, events like tonight, as well as information. Maybe, you know, news comes out where we are, you know, promoting stuff that's happening, like the Space Agency or potentially new developments in research, which might be interesting to you if you are, you know, here tonight. So have a look at those. Have a chat to us afterwards. If you have any questions, we'll be down here.
Fantastic. So that brings us to the end of the event. Now, in terms of what's about to happen, the panel will remain down here, as well as Catherine and Stephen. All of the other University of Adelaide staff members, if you could please head out into the hallway. So we will have people out there to have a chat to. There is still plenty of food, I've been told, so please take as much or as little as you like. No, seriously, please take it, because otherwise it will end up in my fridge at home, and it's not that big a fridge. But otherwise, please feel free to approach us, ask us any questions about our study options, anything at all. But otherwise, thank you all so much for coming tonight.